Hello.
Hello.
We're live-ish. Yes, we're live-ish. I can hear it in the background. What's going on?
Oh, how strange. Hello.
I can hear like a replay or what's going on there?
I'm so confused.
What's going on? You don't hear that? I hear that.
Oh, okay. That was my fault. Sorry. Apparently my browser was on just like an old gadget from like probably the last time we did GadgetCast, and it just went right into the stream.
Oh wow, nice.
Interesting.
That's funny.
Raphael thinks I was on time today. Little did he know I was technically probably late.
I think we were just barely on time.
So I guess that's on time. But I should probably be here like 10 minutes early. That'd be the professional thing to do.
That'd be a professional thing, but I don't even have that as an expectation anymore. So it's kind of yeah. Coolio.
The low opinion you have of me.
No, not at all. It's just not. It's just expectation. You got to be. Some people are super early. Some people are just on time. Some people are late. At least you're not a late person, which is.
In reality, I think I am a late person. So
are you?
That's funny. Yeah.
Just for this, you're just cutting it super.
I'm trying my best for you. I don't want to disappoint you. So I don't want. I know the wave of embarrassment that will come my way if I am. Travels to be like, oh, Greg dropped the ball again.
The wave of cancellations.
Yeah. I can't handle that. So I gotta be here.
Yeah, everyone's filing in. There's plenty of room. You don't have to sit on each other. Find your seats.
The hottest takes on the iPhone 13. We're going to tell you why Apple is ripping you off and how they're anti-consumer and how they hate you. And they all just want to make money. Thank you.
Yes, I think they want to do all of those things. They hate you and want your money.
Mm-hmm. Tim Cook, before he gets on stage, every time he just whispers under his breath, he goes, I hate them. And then he gets on.
Hate all you guys. I hate all you guys. But give me your money anyway.
Yeah. I hate you, but please buy our products.
Please buy our products. All right. Well, we can start. I think this is going to be a fairly long one, I would think. Yeah. I mean, it's going to be as long as it normally is, but it'll be an actual, oh, hold on. YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. Well, how do you figure? It's coming through, whatchamacallit? There's nothing I can do about that.
What's that even mean?
It means, excuse me. Specifically, he hates Greg. Yeah, that's true. True story. All right, well, we got a lot of things to cover, so let's go ahead and...
Yes, specifically me.
Very specifically.
It's just every presentation, Tim Cook just, he has like 5 minutes backstage where he's like thinking, he's like, I'm going to release these products, but at the same time, Greg's going to get to make a bunch of videos that do well. And he has to battle with those issues every time. Like he's kind of helping me out. So I feel bad for Tim.
All right, well, we can talk about all things, the actual announcements that came out, because we didn't even have a GadgetCast for that. We can talk about all this stuff. So why don't we go ahead and start this latest episode of GadgetCast?
Sounds good.
When you're ready. Make sure you got everything ready to go.
Yep, looks good.
All right, back on GadgetCast. In 3, 2, 1, record.
Discovery's 4 computers now have primary control of critical vehicle functions.
3, 2, 1, 0, 0.
Hello, world, and welcome to the GadgetCast. Right after the Apple event, got so much to talk about: iPhone 13, Apple Watch Series 7. All today with my buddy, my co-host, you know him, Travis MC.
Space travel.
I keep waiting for Justine, but she's not there.
Oh, that was my bad.
Dag nabbit, Greg. Dropping the ball.
Ruined this. Yeah, I had it all set up. And
Killing it. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people were waiting for the GadgetCast after the event, but videos We had to get videos out and stuff. So here it is. The week of getting your iPhones and iPads and Apple Watches. Depending on when you hear this podcast, you're either a couple of days away, or maybe you just got it, or something like that. We're super excited to talk about all the things Apple did and maybe did not tell you, and maybe told you in a weird way, which I just saw before the show. I tweeted about this. I don't want to get too deep into it, but I want to mention, we'll talk about it maybe when we talk about the iPhones, this kind of weird thing that they put on their iPhone 13 Pro and Pro Max page. Well, I'm gonna pull it up on the side here on my screen so I don't forget when we talk about it later. But yeah, what should we talk about first? I mean, I think the iPhone stuff is going to be the longest stuff. So let's start with some of the shorter stuff if you are cool with that, Greg.
And I do want to say that we're going to try something different here. It'll probably be better on the YouTube channel. So if you're an audio listener, you might want to check when we talk about the iPhone stuff towards the end of the show, because I have a tier list in front of me. And normally on a tier list, you're grading like the phones and stuff. We're going to try and grade, because Travis and I got this question like all week. We're going to try and grade if you should upgrade your existing iPhone. If you're wondering, if you're one of the thousands of people in our comment sections going, should I upgrade from this? Should I upgrade from that? We are going to make a definitive list. It'll be our definitive list of should you upgrade this phone. So we'll do that when we talk about the iPhones specifically.
I'm excited about that. I'm really excited about that.
So let's start with the iPads, because we'll do it in Apple event order, right? They actually started with the iPads, they went to Apple Watch, and then they ended with the showstopper, the iPhone. So we'll do that first. Travis, we got 2 new iPads out. One's a little less exciting than the other one, but I still think a pretty cool product. The regular 10.2-inch iPad, me and you have recommended this product for so dang long. And I think actually when we look at this product, that Apple fixed one of our biggest issues with it that makes me want to go out and recommend it very, very highly again. For those of you that don't know, this is their standard iPad. Still has an old design, still has like the Touch ID power button, has a little bit of bezel to it, but it's a 10.2-inch display. It now comes with the A13 chip, which is pretty powerful. And what else did they upgrade? They put the centers, agree with me here. They got rid of the 32 gigabyte model, which was it was the $329 model, and everything else, even last year's iPad, even if they took last year's iPad with an A12 and put like 64 gigabytes in it, I think I'd go, oh, I recommend it highly, because the hardest part about recommending that last iPad, even though it was a great deal, is the storage was so not like 64 is a lot of storage, but 32 is very limited. So I was very happy to see that. You can get the $329 model. It's 64. I have no problem recommending that to people. What do you think?
Yeah, and that value iPad is weird because there was always a good value behind it, but that was the one thing that kind of held it back. And I mentioned in a video or something that when I think I even did it here when we first were talking about the iPad Pros and they came out with the center stage option, I was like, this doesn't make a lot of sense for the Pro. It makes more sense for the consumer level of iPads because it's going to be for FaceTime calls and stuff. So that 1,000% makes sense to me. So I wasn't completely surprised when I saw it kind of pop up on these iPads because it made more sense. Like, to me, that's a feature that I think was always made for the consumer level iPads, because it's going to be the mom who's in the kitchen cooking, talking to the grandkids, and it's like, oh, hey, and it's following you around and stuff. And it's a great feature. The idea behind it is it takes an ultra wide lens and it just kind of crops the video as it moves around and tracks you. It's a really great feature. I think it's awesome. The fact that the iPad started at $499 and then has come down to $329, and you'll see it at $299 from time to time. They made that the budget portion. Now, what's interesting is, and I even had a conversation with a person today, but it's happened a couple times. People see the iPad mini and think it's supposed to be less expensive. We'll probably talk about why that isn't, but just briefly, the 10.2 inch, the bigger one, is the less expensive of the two. To be clear, some people don't realize that. They think, oh, the mini's going to be cheaper because it's smaller. It's not. It's actually, weirdly, one of the most powerful iPads out there right now, which is just strange.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for something for your everyday use, the iPad, even last year's, was really good. This one's going to be tremendous. More storage, thank goodness. You have center stage, and of course, the A13 to give you support for many more years.
Yeah, my biggest hang up with last year's model is like this iPad has kind of been in Apple's lineup for a little while now, and it's always been kind of like this really kind of like good value when they put it to $329. But last year in particular, they put the A12 in it. I think we both agreed like this thing's like ridiculously powerful for the price. But last year specifically, I was starting to go, it's still a great value. But you probably should buy the 128 gigabyte model, and then you're spending like upwards of like over $400, and then you start to go, okay, at that price, then you're starting to get into other iPad territory. So now that it is 64 gigabytes, yeah, I can't wait. I mean, I don't have the device. Maybe there's something wrong with it, but it's the same iPad I reviewed last year with an A13, more storage, and center stage. I can only imagine it's going to be better. I'm pretty sure I can make some fair assumptions unless there's some catastrophic hardware failure I don't know about. But I can't wait to recommend this thing because, you know, when you talk about Apple products, a lot of the times there are, you know, you talk about iPhones, $800, $1,000, and it's like, they're too much money. When it comes to stuff like the iPad, it is great that they have this lower cost option in the lineup that is very easy to recommend. And you get all the same features with iPad OS. Like, we can talk about this in a bit. Like, you know, I get like the iPad Pro and the iPad Air. They look nice. They got some fancy features with it. But like when you really boil it down to like, what is an iPad? How much iPad do you really need? It's like, yeah, like all the other stuff is kind of just like a premium nicety of spending a lot of money on it. But in terms of capabilities, A13 chip on this iPad, compare it directly against the iPad Air with the A14, you're not missing out on much if you go for this option. And I love it for that. I love that it's full power.
Yeah, and I think you're going to see a lot of happy people when they get this. And you know, you do have Apple Pencil support, something that's sometimes forgotten about. You got the keyboard support that has little docking pins on it. It's a great option. It is definitely an easy to say, hey, you want to try an iPad out? There you go. Boom. That's where you start. But what I've been talking about for months, what I was hyped about, and man, oh man alive, I am still so hyped. The return of the Mini. I have been, ever since I first heard the rumor that there might be an upgraded or new version of the iPad Mini, I have been super hyped. I've talked about it on GadgetCast almost every week that we've talked about it. And when I saw it, I'm like, this is it. Let me go ahead and order this. Let me order it. Please. Please let me order it. I'm so excited because, quite frankly, the iPad Mini has always been my favorite iPad. Despite the fact that I use my Pro for actual, you know, use, and I've had iPads before, the Mini was always my favorite. And, you know, when I see the comments on, you know, some of the videos kind of being also excited, I'm cool. I'm excited for myself. But to see other people as excited as me is even more exciting because it makes you it kind of validates how you shouldn't go to other people for validation. But I guess my point is it validates something that maybe Apple already knew. And there is a pent up hunger for a redesigned iPad Mini. Now, I don't know how much the hunger is. Like, are they going to be able to sell a lot of these? I don't know. But I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to eat it up. I'm doing videos left, right, and center on it. If you are a fan of that, of the iPad Mini, don't worry. We got you covered because the form factor is perfect. It is, to me, the perfect living room tablet, but it's also great to take on trips. If you want to go somewhere and you want to read a book or watch a movie or something like that, maybe on a trip somewhere, everything about it is awesome. But what made it really weird to me is how pumped up it is. The fact that it has USB-C, the fact that it's an A15 that's in the same chip that's in the iPhone, and the fact that it has, of course, center stage as always. But I mean, I'm blown away. I know people are gonna say you're hyping it up. I am. I don't care. I've been so excited for this, and the new look is great. I'm amped. I'm so amped.
Yeah, I think this was for a lot of people as they came away from the event, like the star of the show. And I don't think people expected it to be. We've told you the rumors for a while, but it's another thing to kind of see it like in real life and to get the best possible outcome for this device, I think, because there was questions of like, is it going to have an A14 or is Apple just going to give us the latest chip? Well, they gave you the latest chip, right? So you're kind of excited. Like for the first time ever in Apple's history of releasing their iPads, the Mini is more powerful than the standard version. Like it doesn't make sense. Like it's crazy when you think about it that way. Like usually the Mini in Apple's history had the last year's chip. It was actually like the weaker product whenever they would release it. You always had some kind of compromise there. This time it's just like, hey, we're going to put the latest chip in it. You got the Apple Pencil 2 support. And people were looking at, I have the old Mini right here. People were kind of like looking at it going, is it too small to even fit the regular Apple Pencil? Well, they put like the volume buttons on the top now. And now it fits it's like the full size of the Mini, but it's the full Apple Pencil. So you don't have to go out and buy a new Apple Pencil. And I think that this device is such an interesting form factor. It's a device you almost think, based on their history of the iPad Mini, they have never updated the design of the iPad Mini since its inception. So it's kind of a device you think they kind of forgot about, and they went, you know what, we tried that once. It was an interesting experiment. We'll keep it alive a little bit longer with some modern chips, but we're not really ever going to try to update it. And this year they gave it the update it frankly deserved, because I am an iPad Mini fan. I bought in the last iPad Mini just because I wanted the fresh chip in it. It's a very different experience to me from a full-size iPad. I don't know. There's something about it. It's so easy to pick up. It's so easy to just bring with you, kind of just leave it on like the coffee table, take it around with you, do some things on it. And it was getting stale. It was getting stale to this point where it's like, all right, why can't we just make it a bigger screen, right? Like make it bezel-less, make it a bigger screen, keep it the same form factor. And they did it. And I'm hyped with you too. Did you get the purple option though? I gotta know. Did you get purple? No?
I almost did. It was too. It wasn't a Gadget Cast purple. If
I got.
But here's the thing. I don't have to worry about it because I can always get a D brand and make it, that purple. Now, another thing, the Apple Pencil 2 support, which I have on my iPad Pro, I'm actually hyped about that, super amped about that. The fact that it's a stupid, incredibly powerful machine. I wish it was more than 64 gigs, but I'll say, okay, especially for $500, I think it should be 128. But the one thing that people kept saying in the comments, which I kind of agree with, is everyone's like, this would be the ultimate iPad, period, end of story, if it had 120 hertz. Okay, fair. At that, okay, but that thing would be like $700 or something like that. And that's who's buying a Mini for $700,
They have to make the cuts somewhere.
Yeah.
And there is a point to where, like, the iPad Air does exist in the light up still. So depending on what their plans are for that, it maybe doesn't make as much sense. I hope this update, and again, I'm with you. I'd be curious to see how well it does. I actually try to gauge the popularity of each announcement by going on Apple's YouTube page and seeing how many views each of their products got. And the last time I checked, the Mini had more views than the Apple Watch Series 7. So to me, it kind of goes, maybe this is a very pent-up product that a lot of people will buy. I do wish it was priced a little bit lower. I thought it would be $500 full stop. I told you guys that on GadgetCast, like every time. I'm like, I think it's gonna be like $500. I wish it was like $400, but it's whatever. I'll pay the extra $100 to get the modern design. I'm just glad they didn't abandon it. I want to see how this works, and if it's a popular product, I would eventually expect to get a 120 hertz iPad Mini. If there's demand for it, Apple will upgrade it. They will put in more modern specs as it goes on. Maybe you'll see an iPad Mini Pro kind of device. I don't know. Well, it'll be interesting.
So one of the things, and for people who don't understand like why this is such a big deal, it's one of the most loved, but kind of, I don't even want to say, I almost want to say disrespected products by Apple, because not only did it never get a design change from 1 to 4, from 2 to 3 was a smack in the face, because the only difference between the iPad Mini 2 and 3 was iPad Mini 3 had a Touch ID sensor. That was it. They put that on, like, that's good enough. That was a complete smack in the face. Because I remember having the 2 going, oh, I can't wait to see what the 3 is. It almost like they didn't care about the Mini. So the fact that this is getting kind of some love, I think that's why you're seeing the sentiment from people who really love the Mini. It's like it's the first time where you really feel like they cared about it again and are doing something interesting.
And like you said, that one update was awful. It was this, they kept like the same, I think it was like an A8 chip in there, like, and it was really starting to show its age, and it just had Touch ID. Funnily enough, the last iPad Mini was kind of like a big upgrade with the chip, because they put like A12 in it, and they gave it Apple Pencil support. The problem with that one, though, is that came out in a world where the $329 iPad existed, and they had the same design. So people just looked at the value perspective like, well, am I going to buy a 400 tablet that looks exactly the same as the 329 tablet and it's smaller? Yeah. And it's like, well, no, most people are not going to do that. So the Mini was in a really awkward spot in the lineup, but I do think it has almost like a cult following of fans And I think they probably didn't update to that model in mass. So I want to see how this model does, especially because we know that the 12 mini for the iPhone wasn't successful. And it kind of feels like Apple went into this strategy for these future iPads and phones with a mini model in all the lineups now. So I'll be interested to see if the iPad mini is a better success than the 12 mini, or if this is the death of the mini product lineup.
I hope not. I mean, I think we
Yeah.
won't. We probably will not see an iPhone 14 mini. Probably not. Unless the 13 mini sells ridiculous, but I don't think we're going to see that.
I think it's too late for that. I mentioned that in a video. I was talking, if you guys want to watch my video, I talked all about the 13 mini. I actually said that, we'll save this for later, actually. Let's remind me to talk about this, but we'll talk about minis later when we talk about iPhones, because I have a good point to make there. But the iPad mini, I think we're both really excited for it. We're going to get ours on Friday, right? You're getting day one.
Yep.
So we'll be able to talk about that more next week, unless you have anything else to add.
No, not really. Just it's of all the things that came out, it's the thing that excited me the most. So if you see a lot of content and me hype beasting it on my channel, that's why. Because I legitimately, personally, am very excited for it.
Yes, agreed. Okay, now let's talk Apple Watch Series 7. This might have been the worst in show at the event, actually, which is funny because I think most people were coming into the show expecting this to be the best of show. People were expecting a super redesign. We've been hearing about these leaks forever. Not to say anything bad about my friend John Prosser, but he was the first person to ever show us these leaks in like their full glory and like really nice looking renders. They were super detailed. People were getting hyped for this new Apple Watch, and they showed off the Series 7, and it was not it, right? It looked pretty much kind of like the other Apple Watches. But it actually did get a design upgrade, just not in the way we were expecting, because the displays got a lot bigger and the bezels around them are really reduced to the point that where if you're looking at the Apple Watch from the side now, you can actually like see things almost kind of like a waterfall display. Not quite like that, but almost that effect. Like the screen goes so much to the edge that if you're looking at it from the side, you can kind of like see details on the side. I think me and you kind of had a similar reaction to this where were you excited for that redesign at all? Like personally, no, right?
The funny thing is I wasn't even closely watching I saw the Apple Watch leaks, but when they showed it on stage, I actually was like, oh, that's cool. And I saw that the bigger screen, I actually liked it. Yeah. So because I had kind of forgotten that there was supposed to be a redesign, I was in the mindset of probably most people who don't watch leaks and stuff. I mean, I do watch leaks, but I just wasn't thinking about it. It was like, oh, that looks cool. It's a bigger screen, which I'm all about that life. They're kind of showing that it's more rugged and all this other stuff. And I'm like, okay, cool. And the price is what it used to be. Okay, cool. They did do a weird thing where they kept, what was it? The Series 3 around?
Yeah, do not buy the Series 3. I'm going to tell you in 2021, it's a no-go. At least get the SE. I think that's still whatever, $720. Spend the extra $79. You'll be happier in a few years when your watch isn't like dead. Like, the Series 3 is so bad at this point that the Apple Watch updates are too big for the watch. It only has 8 gigabytes of storage on there. And every time you have to update the Series 3, you have to reset it. So it takes forever. And your gets wiped and you have to restore from a backup. It's a bad user experience. I think this is one of Apple's dumbest moves in recent history, because the fact that they sell this product still means that it's not even that they still sell it. It's that they have to keep it alive in their software updates for another year after they sell. I mean, it's holding the whole watch lineup back, in my opinion.
Yeah, that was a weird move. I mean, we're going to talk about another thing they did as far as holding older products in line, probably when we get to the iPhones. But this was one of the most universally kind of like, everyone's like, why are we doing this to ourselves? It's funny you say that, because I knew that I have an Apple Watch Series 3 around here somewhere. I'm like, why do I have to keep? I can never do updates. It always wants me to reset. Like, I didn't realize that's why. I thought maybe I had too much stuff on it or something. But it's ridiculous. It's like, what the heck? So based on what John
Prosser said, so low on the 3 that even if you had nothing else on it, you still have to wipe it every time. It's ridiculous.
That's insane. But to counter what happened with the Apple Watch 7, John Prosser says that they were scrambling and that design was so problematic, because we've been hearing about delays on the Apple Watch 7, that this is a kind of hold in place version of the watch and did not actually exist a couple of months ago when all the other leaks were coming out, and is more of a whoops, we couldn't quite get it done, let's show something else. Now, is that true? I don't know. Maybe. Hard to say. But regardless of whether or not it is, the Apple Watch Series 7 is what it is. I mean, you've seen it, so that's what it is. And getting hyped up about something that is definitely not happening at this point is not going to help the situation. So the question is, what is the Apple Watch to buy right now, dollar per dollar? I mean, is it last year's? Is it the 6? Because they're the same processor, right, as the 7?
Yeah. So, and there's a lot of conspiracy theories going around about the development. I don't know. It is a weird thing that it's not ready to go. But at the same time, I don't know, based on like manufacturing line, seems like a super risky move to like have like this weird backup watch. I don't know. The whole thing's kind of weird, but, yeah, they've done this before at the Apple Watch where the Series 4 came out and the Series 5 came out and they had the same exact processor, same exact one. That's happening again this year. So maybe this is just the watch development cycle. We're so used to the phones getting a better processor every year that we think the watch is going to as well. But Apple has now shown us 2 different times when a subsequent model upgrade comes out that the processor stays the same, which might make sense when you start to think about it, because it's like, can they really do a watch speed improvement every year with that small processor? Or do they have to wait for it to be more efficient? Because battery life on these things is so important. And with the iPhones, they could kind of brute force it a little bit and give you a bigger battery if the processor is a little more power hungry. But with the watch, you really can't do that. These are such constrained devices. So that just might be their strategy going for the watch. You know, they've done this twice now to the point of where maybe we don't expect a speed upgrade every year, but that's fine. It's an Apple Watch. I have a Series 6. I think it's fast enough. You're not editing video on this. Like, as long as you can navigate everything, it loads up fast. Would we like a speed improvement? Sure, why not? But it's not a deal breaker, right? Even if the iPhone didn't get a speed improvement this year, would you realistically tell people, do not buy the iPhone because it did not get a speed improvement? I don't think so at this point. So I think this was a small upgrade, but I think going forward, I think a lot of Apple Watch upgrades are going to be small. I think we're past the point of big upgrades on these devices because it's a smartwatch. What realistically can you add every year into this? You don't even have the camera argument, right? There's no camera on a watch, and you might not necessarily ever want to even put one on there. I think actually, though, when you're looking at upgrades year over year, I think you had a really good point, and that, okay, the sides aren't flat. So what? Like, hey, if you like the look of it, cool. But was that really going to change the way you ever used your Apple Watch? No, it's a completely cosmetic thing. Like, it doesn't matter. The bigger screen matters. The bigger screen matters. That's like a cool feature to have. It's like 20% more screen area. That's actually a bigger upgrade than just making the sides flat. So I think from that perspective, you could argue that the Series 5 was a smaller upgrade. And I think this, it's a bigger screen and it looks a little bit different from the other watches. So I don't know. If you have like a Series 4 to a Series 6, maybe you don't. Maybe if you're on the Series 4, you upgrade, because I don't think you had the always on display then. But if you're on a Series 5, you're on a Series 6, you can wait another year. It's no problem. You don't have to upgrade your watch every year. And I don't think you should. Like, I don't think we should be in that mindset of like, I need to upgrade my watch every year. I feel like that is probably one of the most pointless purchases you can make. Don't follow your favorite tech YouTubers. They have to buy these products because we have to cover them. But if I was an average customer, I would not be upgrading my watch every year. It just wouldn't happen. It's a huge waste of money.
It's the one thing that you really don't have to worry about.
An accessory. It's an accessory to your phone. Remember that. It's an accessory.
Yep, 100%. All right, well, let's get into the meat of the potatoes, because this is going to take a while. This is going to take a minute. The iPhone 13 and the iPhone 13 series of watches. The iPhone 13 series of phones and Pro series of phones. Lots to cover, not just the phones themselves and what we got, but also what we didn't get, and then some other things about what to buy, and of course the ranking of should you upgrade. There's a lot to unpack here, so we want to take the vast majority of the show today to do that. So first of all, Greg, let's just go with general overall impressions. Let's just talk about what we thought of the presentation and the phone itself. It's kind of what we thought it would be. What is your takeaway from this?
Are we just going full lineup, or should I just start with the 13?
No. I just want you to talk about overall as a 13 as a series, and then if you have something specific about one of the specific phones, go ahead and go into it. But I just want your general feeling before we kind of dig in.
Yeah. So with the 13, I think my feelings are, so the regular 13 models, I feel like I have to separate them. I feel like it's an interesting upgrade in the fact that I don't think much has changed on the regular 13 models from what we've already seen. But I do think that they got some important upgrades where the camera system in them is like the same from the 12 Pro Max, which had like an exclusive camera system. So it's a pretty good upgrade for them. And they got some like nice quality of life improvements. The notch shrunk a little bit. I really don't care about that. The batteries are probably the biggest takeaway, where I think when we get into our upgrade discussion, I think that's going to be the most important consumer facing feature that these phones got, to the point of where with the 13 mini, I think the battery life improvement, if Apple is correct here, and this is marketing, we got to actually see if this is true. They now claim it's the same exact battery life as the regular size 12 that from last year. And if that's true, that means that the mini is a competent phone now in terms of battery life. And right now you should kind of decide based on form factor which of these phones you want. And that could be enough to save the 13 mini, as we were talking about before. The Pro series, I think, is a bigger upgrade than I thought it would be going into this event. And the more I think about it, specifically the 13 Pro size, I think might be the iPhone of the year, because it's no longer separated in features from the bigger model. It gets the same camera system. It gets a bigger battery, which should probably last around as long as the 12 Pro Max. And some of the camera features they showed off this year, I think, are more impactful and possibly more game-changing than they have been in the past 2 years. So what do you think, Travis?
Yeah, overall, I mean, it was what we thought it would be, right? So there's no surprises there. They are really good. Well, there was a surprise. I mean, the cinematic mode was a surprise, not that it existed because we called it something else, but how cool it is.
Yes.
And how amazing it looks. Now, will it look that good in the hands of tech reviewers and stuff, and even your common person? We'll see, as we'll see reviews come out this week from the YouTubers that currently have iPhone 13s right now. That surprised me. But yeah, I mean, we kind of knew what we were getting. Long before the iPhone 14 leak that John Prosser did this past week, I knew that this was pretty much, or at least I should say, I totally believe this is the last year we're going to see this design of the iPhone. Like it's time to redesign the outside. So the funny thing is, like, first of all, what do you do besides what it's already been done? I don't even know what are it's almost like Apple only has to do a couple of things and then there's nothing else to do. You do always on display or whatever, and then you're pretty much like, okay, what is there to do in phones anymore? Like, I don't even know. Like, if you were in charge of making the next smartphone, what's the next thing you do? I guess you start folding them, I guess. But for me, I'm okay with it. It is what it is. I expect it to be kind of not super exciting. I am interested to see 120 hertz on an iPhone. Do want to see that. And I'm looking forward to the battery improvements above everything. Like, yes. To me, that is the big deal. For me, it doesn't, because I saw a battery usage drop for me from the 11 Pro Max, which is an incredible phone, to the 12 Pro Max. I just saw less battery life. So to hear that the 13 Pro Max is going to be substantially more excites me, because no matter what type of gimmicks or cool things your phone can do, if the battery is dead, you can't do none of them. So that's the biggest thing. And the fact they were able to do it across all of the phones is really good. Is really great. But for me, the Pro Max is just I'm just excited. Can I get 2.5 days out of it?
Yeah, I think that was the most important upgrade on, and it's not the sexiest upgrade, but really it is. Like, the fact that every phone this year gets a battery life improvement, 2.5 hours, again, if they're right about this, is a lot. That's a lot of screen on time to be getting. And then 1.5 hours from the mini, that turns it from a phone that, hey, I can't use this thing, it dies on me by the end of the day, to, oh, I got home and it's alive. You know what I mean? Like, maybe it's not going to be the Pro Max in terms of like, oh, this thing can last forever. But if it can get you through a solid day, you'll look at the phone a lot differently. I know I will. And then the regular size phones getting the upgrades, it's going to put them kind of, I think, where the 12 Max was, which wasn't as good as the 11 Pro Max. I agree with that, but it was a fine battery. Like you weren't going like, this thing stinks. So I think that was super important. But I got to bring it back to the cinematic mode, because I see a lot of the comments in the chat that people were kind of surprised by that too. And based on the rumors, we're expecting some sort of portrait video mode. And we got that in a way. And again, we still have to test these things out. But what they showed off was a lot better than I thought it would be in the way that it works.
Yes.
To the point of where Apple is capturing enough depth data that not only can you blur out the background, you can completely mess up your shot, apparently, and then take it in post. There's going to be like updates to Final Cut and iMovie and in the inbuilt photo editor app, and you can completely change the focus. I remember Travis did a video where he messed up his focus. It was like a huge video. You had like iJustine on, right? And you mess up the focus. Yep. Imagine if you could just go into post and go, oh, let me just tap on me. Yeah. Now I'm in focus.
Amazing.
That is amazing. That is one of the, like when we talk about computational photography and its advancements, if this works the way that Apple says it does, and that's a big if, this is another groundbreaking moment for computational photography. It does things better than a traditional camera can do. It's a fact that if it does that, that is big, because there's tons of times that I have personally messed up focus. Like I left it in like manual focus and I forgot to like change it. And I look at my video, I go, I got to reshoot the whole thing again. And if I could just have all that data and I can fully manipulate it any way I want, and I can change the focus points, that's huge. That is almost enough to make me go, okay, if the quality's good enough, why should I bother shooting on a big camera anymore?
That's the point they were making.
I wonder if in 5 years I will be using a big camera. Like, I wonder that. It made me wonder that.
Well, they were showing that what people could do, professionals could do with it, that use big cameras. And imagine if like Apple made cameras like the Sony A7 III. Like imagine if Apple just went, we're just going to go hard into cameras. And they kind of are, but they're doing it on their phones. And if it turns out that your phone can be darn near as good as a DSLR or a mirrorless camera, and you're getting really close, except for the fact that you can do more because the computational stuff in it is absolutely insane. I mean, if you're not a video production guy, you probably are not as interested in this, but the fact that you can change focus after the fact it wasn't even on my radar as a possibility. That's how crazy it is. It wasn't even on most people's radar as a possibility, let alone I would love to have that. Like, who the heck even thinks that way? So I have to give them props on that, because that wasn't even, I didn't even realize that until after the show was over. Like, I'm like, oh, that thing was really good. And they're like, oh, you can do it after the fact. I'm like, what? How is that possible? So when Apple goes after something, you got to take your hat off to them. They kind of do it in a way that no one else is doing, because you look at what, the Samsung version of that was, and it was very gimmicky. Like, it was cool when it first came out. I was like, oh, cool. I can make the background kind of black and white. It looks kind of cheesy, but okay, cool. This is like, oh, you want to make a movie? Here you go. Like, what? Like, it's not a gimmick. It's weird.
We don't know that for sure,
well,
but based on what they've shown, it does not look like a gimmick. But I do want to go back to your point, because I think it's such an important point. And you see this a lot with iPhone features. And sometimes people are right. When Apple finally put wireless charging on the iPhone and they act like they invented it, it's like, okay, guys, Android has had this for years. You don't get to gloat about this, right?
Yeah.
But there are a lot of features sometimes where Android's like, I did it first. I did it first. And you'll get all the Android people going, well, Samsung's had depth of field on their video phones for years. And it goes, well, no, they had it, but no one used it because it sucked or it wasn't good. It was gimmicky. This looks, if it works the way it does, this looks like something people will use all the time. All the time. Doesn't matter. Even, I know it's called cinematic mode, but just think about it. Think, home video stuff, right? You're recording your kids. And if the focus got messed up, you could change the photo. Like, that's such a cool feature. It's almost like a magical feature. It's like, I tap this and it's in focus after the fact. It's one of those things that you just think and you go, how is that even possible? How is that even possible?
Yeah, and we'll see what happens. Is one of the things I've also been calling out in videos lately is some of these features will be backwards compatible with existing phones. It's hard to know which ones. Typically, it's ones that don't rely on the hardware that's on the newer phone, but it doesn't seem like anything they came out with specifically is related to the hardware of the phone, because even the regular iPhone, so you would think it's LiDAR, but it's not, because the regular base iPhone 13s get this as well.
I do think it must be A15 chip based though.
Maybe.
I say that for one reason.
Why is that?
The way this what they're doing takes a lot of calculation power, because they are analyzing every frame.
Yeah.
They're capturing all this data. And I would agree with you if this was already, I think the biggest problem, not necessarily a problem, because I don't even think most people would notice, but I think if you ask like a tech nerd, like what's the biggest problem with this feature, is that it's not in 4K, it's in 1080.
Yeah.
So
for this year.
For this year. But that makes me think it is tied to the A15 chip. And right now, even with an A15, and you think of all the power that's in this chip and these GPU upgrades that they made, and it's still just 1080p, 1080p at 30 even, so not even 60. And it can't change to 20 frame. You can't do 24 frames per second, apparently, because the way it interprets frames and everything. It's a very, I think, chip-heavy process to be doing. And if it was 4K, I would go, okay, why isn't there a 1080 mode on the A14?
Sure. That's a good point.
I think the chip is baked into the feature.
You might be right about that. There are a lot of other kind of features that they showed that are almost certainly going to make it backwards, but you're right. That might be one of the features that can't.
Now, for something like ProRes, I feel like you could probably update that on the older phones. I don't see why that would be an A15 chip, because that's kind of like, it's just kind of like a video codec that's less compressed. So if anything, I think the chip would be doing less work, if that makes sense, right?
I'm not sure. I know what you're getting at. But I'm not sure if that's true.
Maybe not. I probably shouldn't talk about that. I'm not like a huge, like I use cameras. I love cameras. Like technically I'm not the biggest camera nerd. So I should probably ask someone else before I make a claim. Like
before you start making statements.
But let's talk that. Yeah. We can talk about that real quick. I think that one, and I think you probably agree with me here. We're agreeing a lot this show. I think that feature is nice for the people who can utilize it. Maybe a Jonathan Morrison can utilize ProRes, and he's going to make a fantastic video with it and show you why it's great. I think if you are 99.9% of people watching this, and if you don't know what ProRes is, you don't need it. You don't need it if you don't know what it is.
Right. One thing they did say, if you go to apple.com and then go to the specs of the iPhone 13 Max and Pro and Pro Max, you will see something listed there. So for clarification, it has a 3x time optical zoom being the better type of zoom. However, Apple's using some very slippery language on the website saying a 6x optical zoom range. Now, at first I thought it was a typo, but what they're actually saying is they're doing some tricky math here, because I don't know of any other vendor that does it this way, where they say it's a range and they talk about what it is. What they're saying is 3 times optical zoom in, 2 times optical zoom out, a 6x optical zoom. It's a range. It's a range. Okay, but that's a little slippery for me. I don't appreciate that at all. I think that here's the thing. We also talk about how Apple doesn't have any competition. They don't have to worry about anyone else. But to me, that is a definitive thing that they've done, because everyone else has a much longer and deeper zoom, like 10x, 15x, whatever. And Apple's is only 3. So they make it a 6 range. So you're thinking, oh, it's 6x, even though it isn't. I don't think they need to do that. I think if I was in charge of their marketing, it's almost like they're trying to be with like the Joneses, and they're not. You're not going to get 6x. We know that technically, grammatically, it's correct, but no one looks at it like that. So they know what they're doing. You wouldn't put it there otherwise. So I wish that they wouldn't do that. And if it was me, I would take that down and put 3x optical zoom and be done with it and be okay with that. Just weird.
I don't want to say it's. I don't think they were the first ones to do this, and I'll agree with you that it's deceptive. I don't like it either. However, I do think Samsung was the first one to do the zoom range when they did their 100x zoom, and I believe that was measured out from the ultra wide to the point of where it was really a 50x if you did the thing correctly.
Is that what it was? Because they're saying 100x zoom on the actual phone. I'll look on their website real quick while you're looking at it.
I believe that's true. Like, I believe when they first came out with that, they had like a zoom range thing, and I believe they measure the zoom range from the ultra wide. I believe that's the case, but
It could be.
either way, it doesn't matter. I agree with you that it's kind of deceptive in the fact that they're like 6x when it is a 3x, and in their presentation they even call it 3x.
Yeah.
So it's a 3x. You should measure it from the wide because the ultra wide isn't the starting point.
Right.
But I'm
Right.
with you. I agree. It's not, you're not going to get a 6x zoom range on it.
Yeah. So
It's
it's
barely
unnecessary. It's unnecessary.
It's barely going to be a difference between the 2.5x on the max. Like, it's not going to be crazy.
All right. So this says zoom. So let's see. 2 super resolution zoom includes digital zoom, which may. So they're saying, but they don't say optical zoom. It just says zoom.
Yeah.
So no, it's
and that's deceptive too in a way because it's not 100x zoom. Like, from Apple's standpoint, they could market their phone as being a 15x zoom, which would be highly, highly, highly inaccurate because that's using a digital zoom now. And if you zoom into 15 on your iPhone, your photo is going to look awful. Like, it's going to look really bad. But we don't have to go back and look at the Galaxy. It's whatever. Apple shouldn't be doing it. I agree with Travis on this. I don't think any company should do that.
Let's talk about, before we get into upgrades, which we should do next, let's talk about the phone lineup that exists now on Apple's site from the new phones, and a video that I just put out today. Because remember, I've done so many, I've lost track of which phones, what videos went out when. So right now, in the current lineup for Apple is the iPhone SE, the iPhone 11, the iPhone 12, and then, of course, the iPhone 13 and 13 Pro series of phones. And when we look at these and we do like a comparison, we'll see some pricing that we've always wanted from Apple, where it goes from kind of low to high. But there becomes this monkey in the middle. Greg and I talked about this in DMs before I made my video. And I realized before I talked to him, and then he brought another point, which I didn't even think of, is that there's this, okay, first of all, iPhone 11 at $500, damn good deal, right? I think it's not cutting edge anymore. It's got an LCD screen, but it's such a good phone. I think it wasn't one.
Yeah, it's basically like, I think the 11 is when all the features in a way kind of peaked to where it was like you got like the night mode, you got the ultra wide, and it's not the cutting edge. It doesn't have OLED, it has LCD, but I would call the 11 the most practical phone you could buy from them. It's like, listen, you need a phone, speed wise, camera wise, this might be like the only phone you need if you're really not kidding. If you're not getting distracted by the bells and whistles. Like, it's a very practical phone at $500.
Yep. Now, from there, let's not forget, and this is the thing that Greg had pointed out to me, 64 gigs of storage. So that actually becomes really important. Or no, the iPhone 11, but that becomes very important. The iPhone 12, $699. We're not talking about the mini. We're just talking about the 12. So I put this into two different groups of people. Someone who's willing to spend $500 and someone who's spending a little bit more. $500 for the iPhone 11 group, I think that's a group of people and you're done. When you get to the point where you're like, well, let me look at the iPhone 12, it's a little bit cheaper, $700, I want to get that, and realize that the iPhone 13 is only a hop, skip, and a jump away, $100 difference, which if you're doing it over payments is somewhere about $2 to $3 a month, then the iPhone 12 makes no sense. But to Greg's point, it makes even less sense because the starting storage of the iPhone 12 is 64 gigs. So if you really want to compare apples to apples, you have to get the 64 gig version of the iPhone 12, which is now a $50 difference. And in this case, in my opinion, the 12 is completely pointless.
Yes. And I feel bad about this in a way because before the event came out, I made a video called Wait for the iPhone 12. Don't buy the 13, wait for the 12. And I made that video actually when people were saying, I don't think the 12 is going to be in the lineup. They're going to get rid of it because it's too similar to the 13. And I provided like all this evidence of why they would keep it in the lineup. And I was really proud of that video for the evidence I did because I predicted the entire lineup. However, I did not anticipate Apple to bump the storage up for the normal phones this year to 128 gigabytes. That felt going by Apple's playbook, I was expecting a 64 gigabyte normal iPhone 13 this year, and they didn't do that. And what happened is you know, you look on paper and you look at the 12s and you look at the upgrades from the 13s and you go, okay, you know, the 13s maybe aren't a big upgrade. It looks kind of very similar to the 12. Let me save $100 on the 12. And before the event, that's what I recommended. I'm like, if you really don't care about these upgrades, get the 12. But then you look at the storage and you realize that you're only paying $50 more for the 13, because if you upgrade the storage on the 12 from 64 to 128, it's a $50 upgrade. So the real difference between the 12 and the 13 is $50. And for $50 more with the longer battery life, especially just by that metric, the 12 is a really bad value in the lineup. You should not buy it, I think.
And
really
there's even more reasons. I mean, there's other reasons too. Like you don't get cinematic mode if you care about that. The fact that you get the A15, but to me, the battery life is
battery.
The battery life is just.
I can make an argument for like, okay, the A14's fast. The battery life improvements, like especially on the Mini, like even like the Mini, it's like, oh, that's $599. Like that's a good deal, right? And it's like, yeah, you pay $50 more and your battery life's 1.5 hours longer. Like it's gonna be a way better product.
It really in every single kind of way that I looked at it, the 12 made no sense.
Yeah.
What really kind of sealed the deal for me is when I went to some websites, some carriers, and was wondering like what the month-to-month payment plan would be. And when it was $2, I mean, $100, you go, well, if you have to pay it all up front, some people don't have $100, and I respect that. Yeah. But a lot of people who don't have the $100 are doing it on payment plans. And when I looked at that and it was $2 difference, I'm like, well, yeah, don't do it. Don't do it. It's crazy.
Yeah,
just go up.
Listen, the only way, I'll play devil's advocate. The only way I could make the argument for getting a 12 or a 12 mini is if you looked at your phone right now and you looked at your storage and you went, I'm only using 20 gigabytes of storage. I have 40 gigabytes left. Okay, if that's you and you're like, I want to save $100, I get it. Like, hey, $100 is $100. If you're not going to be using the extra storage, that is a wasted feature. However, I try and use my mom as an example as like an average everyday user, and I check up with her. And I looked at her 128 gigabyte iPhone XR recently, and it had 10 gigabytes of storage left. So she has no iCloud photo plan or anything like that. So I try and gauge my mom as like an average user. It takes an average amount of pictures, right? And she had 10 gigabytes of storage left. So I'm guessing most people are kind of maybe in a similar situation at this point where, especially, and I'll make the argument that the phones last forever now, that if you buy a 13, if you want to keep this phone for the next 5 years, barring it doesn't get damaged or anything like that, you can do that. And if you have 128, you can grow comfortably into those 5 years, where if you have 64, on year 2, even if you have 40 gigabytes left now, with all the videos and photos we take on a daily basis now, you might be like, why didn't I just spend the $50 more? Why didn't I do that? So, you're muted.
It's just the recommendation from both of us. At the end of the day, like, just don't do it to yourself. I even threatened people in my video that I would come to their house and throw it away if they went and bought one. So, let's the 12 just doesn't make sense anymore.
I'd also like to make another point, looking at this entire lineup. And I would also say, we kind of skipped over this before, I would definitely say do not buy the iPhone SE anymore. I would also say spending $100 on the 11, I think you get a much better phone out of that. And that's entirely dependent on, I know there's some people that actually get the SE, strangely enough, a lot of older people who like the button design. They can't get used to like the new designs. And I get that if you're used to something, you're more comfortable with it. But I think for most people, $100 more for the 11, you get a bigger screen, which I think is more popular now. You get way longer battery life on the 11, like way longer. You get an ultra wide camera. So you get the modern design, you get Face ID. The SE was a good value when it came out, but I think if you want a better phone for $100 more, I think the 11's an easy choice to make.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I think there was just some people that really liked that form factor, and it was an interesting throwback.
Yeah.
But I think its time has passed.
Yeah, I think if you're buying today, like you bought it at launch, don't feel bad. Like it's whatever. If you like the phone, you like the phone. But today, if you're going in, I think you really have to think about it. And if it's a price thing, I think if you spend an extra $100, or as Travis is saying, an extra $2 a month on your payment plan, I think you walk away with a better phone, and because of the battery, I think you get an extra 2 years out of it. You know.
All right. Well, that brings us to the upgrade options.
All right, let's do this.
Yeah.
Hold on. Let me share my screen.
Yep. So now the question isn't so much you're buying one new or whatever. If you have a phone, when should you buy? When should you upgrade it? And we have here, if you're going to have to watch this on YouTube, so make sure if you're listening to the audio
YouTube
podcast,
there'll be a link in the podcast description. We have more audio listeners than YouTube viewers. For this portion, I would highly recommend pausing and coming to YouTube. How about that? I'm going to recommend you pause
there you
and
go
to YouTube. Look at that.
And finish it out on YouTube. That's right.
All right. So I have some rules for this tier list because this is an upgrade tier list. We're not grading what the iPhone is, and we could do that one stream. I actually thought that'd be fun, historically ranking the iPhones from S tier to D tier. What we're doing is telling you if you should upgrade. Now I'm going to cut off phones from this list because this goes all the way back to the original. We're going to end it at the 6 over here. Everything else is we're not covering. We're not going to talk about the 5S to the original iPhone. Like if you have that, you should upgrade. All right. You shouldn't own those phones anymore. Right? Like you don't get the latest updates. Like it's pointless talk about. Obviously, we're going to tell you should probably upgrade from a 5S, right?
Yeah, I would hope.
Yeah.
No, what about the 2G?
No, we're not.
About the 2G? No, don't do that. Don't do that to yourself.
Yeah, this is just a standard iPhone that's ever came out. So we're not going to cover this bottom list, but we're going to cover everything on the top list.
Okay.
And we're going to rank them. So it's just going to be a ranking system of it's S to D, but I put parentheses, upgrade now, upgrade, maybe upgrade, don't upgrade. You're a fool if you upgrade this phone. Why are you upgrading this phone? You're a darn fool. What are you doing?
That's right.
You're wasting your money. All right. So, and we're going to talk about this. So it's going to be a little bit of discussion with each one. We're going to start from the top, though. Okay. Travis, the 12 Pro. Should people upgrade from the 12 Pro to the 13?
You're a fool. You're a fool if you do that. Or you're one of us.
I think this is an easy one. I'm going to agree with you. I think.
Or you're a tech YouTuber or something like that.
I think you're a fool to upgrade. I'm going to include tech YouTubers. Like if you're not covering this phone, I mean, personally, I'm a fool. I'm upgrading to this over a year. My 12 Pro is still perfectly fine, has a good battery. Cameras are excellent on it. Very same design. There's no reason to upgrade. If you are watching this, you have a 12 Pro, do not feel bad. You should wait for the 14. You're a fool if you upgrade from this.
You are a fool.
All right, this is going to be interesting.
All right.
The 12. What do you think?
All right, so the 12 to the 13? So we literally just talked about this, except for the fact that we were talking about someone buying into it. Now 12 to 13 Pro is maybe a different conversation than a 12 to a 13.
Exactly.
So
also, I feel like here's my argument, and we have to take the whole lineup. These aren't separated into like plus phones too, which is kind of a little difficult. I think if you got the 12 mini this year and you love the 12 mini, you love it. You love the 12 mini so much. I could make the argument that maybe because this 13 mini might be the last mini ever made and you want to keep this phone for the next 5 years, I could say maybe you should upgrade to the 13 mini. How do you feel about that?
I agree. Just battery alone. Alone. So
and
here's a thought. Now, let's not forget that not just okay, Miss Tech Fans says she has 11 Pro Max. By the way, if I was not a tech YouTuber, I would have kept my 11 Pro Max. It was one of my favorite iPhones I've ever had. The battery life is incredible. I totally agree with you. But we'll get to that phone later. Here's the question, because there are incredible trade-in deals right now. Do we take that into consideration or not?
Sure. Why not? Why not?
So for the mini, I agree with you. 12 mini to 13 mini, the biggest deal isn't even the camera stuff. It's the battery life. I think you just do that. I think you put the mini on there. I would say upgrade rather than upgrade now, or maybe upgrade.
I would say maybe, because we have to consider the regular 12 too, right? So hey, maybe if you have a 13 mini and you're like, what are they talking about? Battery life problems. I end the day with 20% because I'm not on my phone 24/7 like these maniacs. So
fair.
I think if you have a 12, I think it's a maybe. And that might surprise people because I think a lot of people are going to say you're going to put on you're a fool because it's the last phone. But I think it's a maybe.
Okay, I'm in with that. Let's go maybe there. That's for the mini, right?
It's for both 12 and 12.
Oh, wait. So 12 going to 13?
Yeah.
Let's see. The trade-in deal right now, if you, let's say, for example,
again, here's my argument for the 12, even though I think the mini is a stronger argument. The 12 The mini got 1.5 hours of extra battery life. The 12 gets 2.5 hours of extra battery life. The same camera system minus the telephoto as the 12 Pro Max. Those are pretty big upgrades. Plus the cinematic mode. I think it's a strong maybe.
All right, so here's what happens. From a monetary standpoint, without additional like trade-in deals by your carrier, which some of those apply right now, if you were to trade it in at apple.com, you'll get $530 for your iPhone 12. Now you probably could sell it for more, but maybe you don't want to deal with that. So 530 minus the $799 makes it like $200 for the upgrade. That's not bad. Now it's 1 year later, and it's a maybe. I feel bad saying that this is the year you go from a 12 to like that almost seems silly, but there are reasons.
It's silly, life isn't. But I'm telling you, again, we can't separate into this mini. Unfortunately, If you want to say in your head from the 12 it's a don't upgrade. Not even you're a fool. It's a don't upgrade, and the 12 mini is an upgrade. We could say that definitively, but for this, we do have to rank it. And I'm just going to say...
I'll say maybe. I'm in with that. Just because of the battery life. Just because of the battery life. Yeah, okay, all right.
All right. And because it's probably the last mini, and if you love that phone and you want to keep it for the next 5 years, and I get that. I really love the mini's form factor. It's why, like, this year, last year I got, like, a ton of iPhones. This year I wanted to just get, like, one. But I was like, I want the mini in my personal collection. I'm trading in... I traded in my 12 mini for a 13 mini because I wanted it in my collection. So
interesting.
That's how I did that. All right. This one's going to be controversial, I think. iPhone SE 2020.
For a mini, maybe? I say yes because the battery on the mini or the SE was pretty bad.
Yeah. I think we could either put this into the maybe or the upgrade, but I wouldn't tell people not to upgrade. Like, I think if you got an SE and you're like using it and you're like, man, the battery on this isn't good. I want the mini's out now, right? When the SE came out, the mini wasn't a thing. And you're looking at the mini, you're like, ooh, I love a small phone. But it has a modern design and the screen's actually way bigger. I think it's maybe an upgrade or maybe. I don't know. That's what I'm
personally. I think that most people that use the SE at this point, you got to remember also there's a lot of cycles on that battery. It's probably even worse.
Yes.
I think it's an upgrade. I don't even think it's a maybe. I think it's an upgrade.
I'm gonna go with you. I'm going with upgrade.
I think it's an actual upgrade. Yeah.
All right, we have to compromise. This one's gonna be interesting. 11 Pro. So
I think this is gonna be a weird one. Because if you go 11 Pro, if you go say 11 Pro Max, I'm gonna say no.
Yeah, no,
which is weird.
11 Pro Max. I think it's a don't upgrade. I don't think
it's so weird.
It's a good phone. It is better than the 12 in battery life by a lot.
Yes, it is.
It's a great phone. I don't think you should upgrade if you have an 11 Pro. And you have to take this into consideration too. You also spent a lot more money to get that phone. So it should kind of hold its value longer than the cheaper 12, which is what it did because it had the better battery life. It had some better camera features like a zoom. So in a weird way, it holds its value longer. And like Travis said earlier in the show, I believe the 11 Pro Max has a better battery than the 12 Pro Max. And I'm pretty sure the 11 Pro, even though I didn't use it, I believe that did have a better battery than the 12 Pro.
Yes, I agree. And you know what? I'm going to tell you right now, I'm actually going to take this entire thing and I'm putting it as a video on my YouTube channel today.
Look at this. All right.
Because I think this is interesting.
It's good.
Okay. So next up, what do we got?
Oh, you wouldn't call someone a fool, right? You would just say, don't upgrade.
I would say no, don't upgrade. I know that's so weird. As we just said, the 12s maybe.
Oh, that's why when I was looking at this, I was like, oh, is this going to be stupid? Like, we're just going to tell people that the new phones don't. But the more I thought about it, I'm like, okay, it's actually interesting. This is interesting.
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
What about the 11?
So here's the interesting thing. That's a phone that I think the people who bought it with an expectation and it was met. And one of the biggest things you got from that was battery life and night mode. Generally speaking, there were some other things. You also got the ultra wide for the first time on kind of the base model, and they would definitely see a difference. But if I put myself in the mindset of an iPhone 11 user, they're probably still super happy with it right now. And while I can definitely tell you that, yeah, you're going to see a difference. Now, are we talking about, do you think they would go to the Pro or are you talking about just a 12? Do you think they would go, or 13? Do you think they would go just the base 13?
That's the thing. Yeah, I guess we kind of have to judge it from that perspective, right? If they were a normal iPhone user before, they're probably a normal iPhone user.
You assume that. Yeah, just for price. Okay, so let's look at what the trade-in is on Apple's website and let's see what kind of deal you can get. So if you're going for an iPhone 13, you have an 11, which has LCD. Let's remember it's LCD. It's 4G, so you're gaining 5G. There's another reason perhaps to go. We didn't talk about this on the 11 Pro, but we also know that it's not a huge deal. You don't see a lot of difference.
Yeah, honestly, at this point, I know the 13s are supposed to have better 5G. Maybe that'll change my opinion, but based on my 5G usage with the 12, I don't think I would recommend people upgrade for 5G. It's just
generally speaking, no. So let's say we're going to go for the iPhone 11. You can get up to $340 for your trade-in. You can definitely sell it for more than that. But again, if you don't want to go through the hassle, Apple will give you $340 trade-in, which will bring your price down to, what is it? $800 plus that. That's about a little bit about $500.
This might be controversial. And this is weird too. I kind of like to talk about this sometimes. There's like a problem that some people have with like OLED displays and they get headaches from them. It's the way that they do the refresh rates. It flickers, the brightness and stuff like that. I have had people in my comment section talk about this. They can't use OLED phones because they get headaches. They actually have to use an LCD phone, which is going to be interesting as these come out of the lineup. I wonder if there's going to be a suitable replacement for these people or something's going to have to happen. It's kind of weird. I almost feel, and maybe this is controversial, it could be maybe an upgrade. I almost feel like the 11 might be a don't upgrade based on the trade-in value and everything else we considered. And that would be controversial because we put the 12 as a maybe upgrade and people are going to look at us like we're stupid.
I'm going to say maybe because
maybe.
I want to say maybe because I can see your point. I can see your point.
We're divided here. I think it'd be cool if the chat would tell us.
Yeah. Vote on
B or
it.
C. If we can get that real quick in the chat, we can let us know B or C real quick. Just write B or C, and then we'll let you guys help us out here.
That way we'll know, and we'll just start counting them up and see what goes on. All right, chats are coming in. Let's see. Mini LED. Oh, yeah, I forgot about there's. Yeah, but that's We're not yet. Don't upgrade is for one. For Rusty says that. What else we got?
We got
a lunch of them. B. Don't. C.
Oh, look at this.
Maybe upgrade. Don't.
Yo.
I think we got more B's than C's.
B's have it, but it was more divided than I thought it'd be. All right. We'll put that in the maybe, right?
All right, cool.
That makes sense. That makes sense. All right, here we go. These are harder, I think. iPhone XS. I think this phone, out of all of them, this is going to be controversial based on what I say here. I think the XS you should upgrade from.
Yes. Now, funny you say this. I literally had a conversation with a guy today who watches my videos. I saw him at church, and he was telling me about how he has a XS and is going to the 13, and he's super excited. One of the reasons is the battery life, because I harped on that so much. And a XS at this point, the battery life you're going to have some problems because the amount of cycles you will have on that phone by now, I don't know what the battery health is going to be on that thing. Plus the camera improvements, you're definitely going to see a difference. So 100% yes.
XS, I'm telling you, it's not. Would you put it in upgrade now or an upgrade?
I would say you could upgrade now because you're not going to get much for the trade-in. Right now,
I think maybe we should put an upgrade because it's so hard to me.
Yeah, well, because you know what I was saying before is everything 10 below is upgrade now. So you're probably right. Upgrade is what I put there.
I put that upgrade. Like Travis said, the battery on this phone wasn't even the greatest when it came out, especially on the regular size model. Maybe the Max, you got more battery life out of it, but it lacks night mode. And that to me is you got to upgrade from the XS.
Yep.
Now, here's where it gets interesting because you would think with an iPhone XR, we would have the same exact complaint as the XS. However, you have to remember that the XR was the most successful iPhone. It outsold the XS, which surprised a lot of people because the battery life was actually a lot better in the XR. Believe it or not, the XR had the best battery life out of any iPhone when it was released. Better than the Max version, which is crazy to think about, which makes me think that it's a maybe upgrade. I know people who have a XR, and I talked to them, and I said, are you upgrading to a 13 this year? And they said, no, my phone is fine. The battery life is great. The camera is good. I think the 10R is a maybe based on that. It is not an upgrade.
So you have to think about the mindset of the people who bought it. I personally would tell someone with a 10R to upgrade it now because the value is not going to go any higher. It's never going to keep going down. And the things you will see different, you will definitely see. Because you don't even get night mode on the 10R, right?
You don't. But
so I just think I think they're good. But I said, let me finish. So while I would tell someone you should upgrade, I think people who bought the 10R are of a certain mindset of value, and they're going to ride this thing till the wheels fall off.
Yes.
So I don't think they're going to. I'm going to say maybe, because I would tell them yes, but I also need to be sensitive to the sensibilities of that person and how much they were willing to pay and all that other stuff. Because you remember when the 10R came out.
The person who bought the 10R is a different customer than the 10S.
Yes.
10S person spent $1,000 to get the latest tech. The 10R person made the decision to get a $750 phone because they value their money. And if the 10R had the same battery life as the 10S, I would say go upgrade. But because you're not going to be running into those issues with the 10R, if you spend the $70 on a battery replacement or something like that at this point, I think that's probably, I think it's a good idea to do. So I'm with you. I think if it was us, we would say upgrade, obviously. But taking into the account the 10R market, I think it's a maybe, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, let's do that. Because we have to understand this is a ranking system. And to put the 10R at the same level as the 10S, I think would be wrong to do for an upgrade. Because I think the 10R held up better than the 10S, which is based only on the battery life. And that is really weird to say to me. Like, it is weird. Like that, the phone held up better.
But you also have to think about the people that bought it and you know, their use cases. They're not tech heads. They just want the thing to work and not have to charge it halfway through the day. You know what I mean?
Okay. iPhone 10.
I think everything from this point forward is upgrade now. I think everything from this point forward. Personally.
I could make an argument, but I think actually out of all of them, the 10 is definitely an upgrade now. I don't think that's a controversial statement to make. The 8 is the only one I think on this list that maybe...
I love the 8. I think I told you the 8 Plus when I did the Amazon Renewed video was one of my favorite iPhones I ever played with, I ever used. So however, again,
I do want to take the sensibility of the market here, like we did with the 10R. And I do want to say that there are customers who bought an 8 because they saw the 10 and they didn't like the design of it. And they wanted like the home button and everything. And while you could tell those people to upgrade to an SE, I don't know if the SE was a big enough upgrade. And also we have to consider there is an 8 Plus, which had like a better battery. And it's kind of the only phone that I would argue maybe belongs in the upgrade spot rather than upgrade now. But
okay.
I feel like I don't know.
There's a good point here to Gwendolyn in the chat brings up. You can go in Apple Store and replace for pretty inexpensive the battery and be kind of right back where you were. And in that case, fair. And she says her friend refused the upgrade because of the home button. Now, that's only going to last so much longer. So this is a good time to jump off. But if you're hardcore, I need the button, the home button fan, and you don't care about the bezels, then fair. Put it in upgrade. I just think anything under 10 should be upgrade now. But I can also understand that some people have held on to the 7s and 8s because of that reason.
The only reason I put this into the category is because I think maybe if you had the 8, it's probably an upgrade now. I do think someone with and this is the hard part because it's not separated out to plus lineups. I do think someone with a plus, based on what we said, might actually still be fine with that phone because the pluses had better batteries. And again, if you have the home button and stuff, maybe you don't want to upgrade, but you're right that they have to jump off eventually. I don't know.
I think that now's the time, but listen.
What do you want to do?
Leave us a comment. I think you put it upgrade now. But if you're feeling some kind of way about it, put it in upgrade. We'll, at the very least, say that's okay.
You know what? Let's chat. I'm gonna leave this here for a second because I think we could just go through the other ones really quickly. Let us know real quick. Put S or A in the chat, and we'll let that determine it again. Just put S or A real quick. That's upgrade now. Upgrade. We'll grade it like that. 7. That's an upgrade now, right? Like
yep. Mm-hmm.
And Yeah, 6S. That's
Yep.
totally an upgrade now. It's funny. Every phone I put in this category, I believe, can still get iOS 15 too, which I thought
Which is crazy to think about. Yeah.
crazy to do. SE. I kind of want to talk about this real quick. I think if you're an SE owner and you still own this phone, which I do think there are actually people out there. This is an upgrade now, but I do want to say if you own this phone, you need to upgrade to the Mini, because if you love this phone, you are going to love the Mini. It is almost the same size and it has a bigger display. And believe it or not, it has a better battery life than this phone. This phone, like, talk about battery life. I used this phone in like 2020 as like an experiment. I think I got like 2 hours of screen on time on like a month. It was awful. So,
oh my God.
We get a consensus on the 8.
Yes. So we have more A's than S's. No, it's about even. It's about even. But yeah, S. I'm gonna give it to the S's.
It's S.
Yep.
All right. Let's put that there. 6. I feel like this needs like its own special category. If you have a 6. Yeah, that's the only phone in my list that I included because it was so popular. But I think that's the one that does not get iOS 15.
Oh yeah. Yep.
So, and the 6 was really RAM constrained. It's a garbage phone nowadays.
There's a lot of problems.
But hey, it was a fun list. Obviously,
Yeah.
some of them were going to be upgrade now. I think at the end, maybe we should have cut off a little bit earlier, but it's whatever. I think the controversial ones we had to go through were fun to talk about because I think those are the people that probably needed the advice the most.
Yep.
And it is an interesting list. I like this.
I love that. That was fun. We should definitely do that again anytime we have one of these. And totally makes easier content for me because now I can upload a video and I don't really have to do anything.
We could do this once a year. We could do the iPad list.
Yes, that's probably next. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed it. Of course, if you're listening to the audio podcast, leave us a review and definitely come to the YouTube channel to look at that list. We did a little visual thing there, so you'll enjoy that. And of course, all the links are in the show notes for our channels and all the other cool things that are going on GadgetCast. Anything else, Greg, before we go?
I don't know. Yes, just stay tuned because we're gonna have a ton of coverage, I believe, on all of our channels and stuff like that. We'll be back again next week with even more to talk about because we'll actually have the devices and stuff like that. So that'll be a show you don't want to miss. And make sure you leave us a rating review. If you like the tier list stuff, let us know on Apple Podcasts. Leave a review.
Yeah.
I love the tier list. Why don't you guys do this all the time?
That was fun. I would do it again, 100%. All right, everybody. We'll see you next time. I accidentally hit record rather than the audio thing, so you'll have 2 files from me. All right, so he's Greg. I'm Travis, the Gadget Cat. Whoops.
That's fine. I would love, and we should maybe get. I like the tier list idea. I think the coolest one to do, and this one was kind of obvious in a lot of ways. Maybe some of them weren't obvious. I think like you said, from the 10 below, it was kind of like, all right, what are we gonna do here? I think the cooler list to do, and we should save this for a special show, would be to get a couple guests on, like Renee, maybe Gary, someone like that, maybe Luke.
Yeah.
100%. What would an episode be with all these legends on here talking about the iPhone historical ranking from best to worst, from the 2G to the 13, and just go, what is the, historically speaking, out of all these phones, what is the best and what is garbage when you think about it in hindsight? Would that be like that could be a whole show?
100%.
Honestly.
I know what Jern would say. Definitely with the 4, right?
I think the 4 would be on the S a lot. I think
4S would be there because that's where Siri came in. Whether you like Siri or not, that was.
I think the 4 would probably be the S, and then maybe like the 4 could be an A. But I think like the original iPhone, right? Like that's like, I don't know, is that an S or is that an A? It's like the original, but it didn't have 3G, so it'd be an interesting discussion.
I would love it. We should definitely do that. Why not? Especially after all this coverage is done, we should definitely do it. All right. Well, listen, we'll see all you guys and gals next time. We appreciate you coming on through. Greg and I have videos and stuff to make, so definitely check out our channels, and we'll see you guys and gals next time. Peace and love.
Yep. Take care.